Okay, so picture this for a second. You are just absolutely exhausted by the modern dating landscape.
Well, I think a lot of people are right there with you.
Right. I mean, you are tired of the swiping, the ghosting, the hey texts that just go absolutely nowhere, and the people who look literally nothing like their profile picture.
The standard dating app fatigue.
Exactly. You're just done with the games. And then you hear about this service, a really high-end, highly exclusive matchmaking service, and it promises to find you the one.
Capital T, capital O.
Yes, the one. But there is a pretty massive catch, or, well, maybe for some people it is actually a feature. This service is specifically designed to help psychopaths find love.
It is certainly a really provocative premise. And just to be completely clear, for everyone listening right now, we are not talking about some hypothetical scenario or a scary new startup in Silicon Valley that is about to go public.
Thank goodness.
Right. We're doing a deep dive today into the novel Matchmaking for Psychopaths by Tasha Coryell.
Yes. And honestly, when I first picked this up, I thought, okay, this is going to be your standard thriller. Someone is going to die. There's going to be a detective trying to figure it out, and then end of story.
Which is a fair assumption, given the title.
Totally. And, well, spoiler alert, people do actually die. But it is so much more than just a book with a body count. It is this incredibly sharp satire of modern dating, our obsession with reality TV, and that really blurry line between feeling a spark and ignoring a giant waving red flag.
Exactly. It operates on this really interesting razor's edge throughout the whole story. It is part dark comedy, part psychological thriller, and it is just constantly subverting what we expect from a romantic comedy.
Yeah, it really flips the script.
Because usually in a rom-com, the meet-cute is, clumsy but adorable. Spilling coffee on someone's shirt or dropping a stack of papers. Here, the meet-cute might actually involve an admission of a felony.
A literal crime.
Right. But before we get deep into the plot, we have to talk about the mission of this book. It is not just there to entertain us. It is built to make you question what you actually tolerate in relationship.
Right. It really forces you to look at your own dating history and ask, wait, was that guy just spontaneous, or was he actually exhibiting a severe lack of impulse control?
It is a thin line sometimes.
It really is. And at the center of all this chaos, we have our protagonist, Lexie, or Alexandra. And the most important thing to know about Lexie right off the bat is that she is desperate, and I mean absolutely desperate to be boring. She wants a life that is just beige. She wants normal.
Which is a very, very specific reaction to her upbringing, which we will definitely get to. Lexie is basically running from her own DNA. She's terrified that biology is destiny.
She wants to outrun her genetics.
Exactly. But before we unpack all her childhood trauma, we really need to understand the environment she is currently operating in. We need to talk about the company itself. Better Love?
Better Love. I mean, it sounds so corporate and comforting, doesn't it? It sounds like a brand of organic yogurt or a mattress company.
It really does. It has that very sleek, marketable vibe.
Yeah, and it is this high-end matchmaking service where Lexie currently works. And on the surface, it looks like your standard elite dating agency. You have the nice, pristine office, the intensive intake interviews, the expensive promise of finding your perfect match.
But the intake process is where things get scientifically very interesting.
Oh, it is wild. So the founder, Serena, created this intake questionnaire. And to the untrained eye, it just looks like a standard, quirky personality test. It asks things like, do you prefer cats or dogs? Or what is your ideal Friday night?
Right, just standard icebreaker stuff.
Exactly. But mixed in with those totally banal questions are items pulled directly from the hair psychopathy checklist.
And this is where the genius of the business model really comes into focus.
Okay, let's stop right there for a second, because we hear the word psychopath thrown around constantly in pop culture. People say, oh, my ex is a psycho, or my boss is a complete psycho.
We dilute the term a lot in everyday language.
We do. But here they are, using the actual diagnostic tool. Can we break down what that actually means? What exactly is the hair checklist?
Absolutely, because this is crucial to understanding the entire premise of the book. The Hair Psychopathy Checklist Revised, or PCLR, is the clinical gold standard for assessing psychopathy. It is not some BuzzFeed quiz you take on your lunch break.
Right, this is real psychology.
Exactly. It measures 20 specific traits, and it is usually broken down into two main factors. Factor 1 deals mostly with interpersonal and affective traits, so how you relate to other people and how you experience emotion.
Okay, give me some concrete examples of that. What does a Factor 1 trait actually look like if you are sitting across from them on a date?
Well, Factor 1 includes glibness and superficial charm. You know that person who is just a little too smooth. They're always a little too ready with the absolutely perfect answer to any question.
The ones who never seem to stumble over their words.
Right. It also includes a grandiose sense of self-worth and pathological lying. But the big one, the one that really defines the condition in a public consciousness, is a lack of remorse or guilt and a fundamental callousness or lack of empathy.
So basically, someone who can deeply hurt you and genuinely not lose a single wink of sleep over it.
Precisely. Their brain just does not process that empathy. Then you have factor 2, which is much more about lifestyle and antisocial behavior. This includes a constant need for stimulation or an extreme proneness to boredom.
They constantly need a thrill.
Yes.
Yeah.
It also includes having a parasitic lifestyle or generally poor behavioral controls. Impulsivity.
Okay, so if Serena's secretly putting this into a dating questionnaire, she obviously cannot just ask, hey, are you a social parasite? Or do you lack human empathy? People would just lie.
No, they definitely would lie. And that is the brilliance of the satire and how Coryell writes this agency. Serena disguises the questions. So instead of asking, are you a pathological liar, the question might be framed around creativity or storytelling. Like, how often do you embellish a story to make it more entertaining at a party?
Oh, that is sneaky. That sounds like a fun quirk.
It does. And instead of asking, do you lack remorse, it might be a situational scenario question. Like, if you found a wallet with $1,000 cash in it, would you return it? Or do you think finders keepers is a valid life philosophy?
Right, she makes it sound like a philosophical debate rather than a morality test.
Exactly. She is looking for the people who answer in a way that reveals a fundamental neurological disconnect from standard social morality.
And the crazy part is the clientele has absolutely no idea they are being screened for this,
No,
right?
they do not. And this gives us a key insight into the demographic better love targets. These are incredibly wealthy professionals. CEOs, top-tier surgeons, hedge fund managers, people who inherently view relationships and interactions as transactions.
Because they treat everything like a business deal.
Right. And we actually know from real-world psychological studies that psychopathic traits are significantly overrepresented in corporate leadership positions compared to the general population.
Because if you need to fire 1,000 people right before Christmas just to save the company's stock price, having a complete lack of empathy is actually considered a corporate skill. It is rewarded.
It absolutely is. It is known as the corporate psychopath phenomenon.
Okay.
These people are highly charming, they are wildly successful, they are usually very well dressed and put together, but they completely struggle with standard dating.
Because standard dating actually requires real vulnerability.
Exactly. It requires emotional reciprocity. And if you are neurologically incapable of that genuine reciprocity, you're going to fail at traditional romance. You get bored quickly, or you cheat, or you ghost someone because you simply do not care about the other person's emotional state.
So Serena, the founder, realizes there is this massive market inefficiency here. She has all these incredibly rich, seemingly unmatchable people. But she did not just stumble into this business purely for the money, right? This mission is actually deeply personal for her.
It is deeply personal. Serena's backstory is fascinating because it touches right on that age-old nature versus nurture debate. She has a son, and she realized very early on in his life that he was just different from other kids.
Different how?
Well, he was incredibly smart and very good-looking. But as he got older, he could not keep a girlfriend to save his life. He would say incredibly cutting, cruel things without even realizing they were hurtful. He basically viewed the people around him as objects to be moved around a chessboard for his own amusement.
So she realized her own son was a psychopath.
She did. She recognized the traits. But, and this is the absolute key to the philosophy of the entire book, Serena genuinely believed in the concept of a good psychopath.
Wait, is there even such a thing as a good psychopath? That feels like an oxymoron.
That is exactly the question the book wants you to ask. Serena thought, okay, standard dating algorithms cannot fix him because he does not feel things the way an algorithm expects a normal human to feel.
He does not fit the data model.
Right. But she believed that if she personally curated the match, if she found someone who specifically complemented his exact brand of neurodivergence, he could actually be happy and safe. She wanted to prove that there is a lid for every pot, even if the pot is fundamentally incapable of empathy.
That is a wild theory to base a business on. It is basically saying you do not actually need to be a good person to find love. You just need to find someone whose specific damage perfectly fits your specific damage.
Yes, it is the lock and key theory of emotional dysfunction. And that right there is exactly where our protagonist Lexie comes in. She's the specialist for these specific high-risk clients, the difficult cases. And she is incredibly good at it. She actually calls her job counseling cosplay.
I love that phrase so much. Counseling cosplay. Because she isn't an actual licensed therapist. She mentioned she thought about being one, but the schooling just took too long and she wanted a steady paycheck.
Right, she skipped the PhD.
But she has this undeniable gut instinct. She can sit across from a client, someone who might be genuinely terrifying or deeply unsettling to a normal person, and she can just read them perfectly. She understands their darkness. And as we find out, she understands it because she is intimately familiar with the darkest kinds of people.
She speaks the language of the predator fluently because she was raised right in the middle of the den.
Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now. Why is Lexie so uniquely good at handling literal psychopaths?
Okay.
Is because her parents were the ultimate psychopaths. We are not talking about bad or neglectful parents here. We are talking about Peter and Lydia Schwartz.
Yes.
Yes.
The infamous serial lust murderers.
Just saying the phrase serial lust murderers out loud sends a chill down my spine. It sounds exactly like a trendy true crime Netflix documentary waiting to happen.
It creates a very specific and very terrifying image, doesn't it? And the book goes into deeply disturbing detail about their dynamic. They were not just individual killers who happened to meet. They were this perfect couple who happened to kill together.
It was a team effort for them.
It brings up the well-documented psychological concept of hybristophilia, or Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, where people are sexually or romantically attracted to those who commit horrific crimes. But in the case of Lexie's parents, it was a true folie à deux, a shared madness.
They fed off each other's sickness.
Exactly. They treated murder like a shared weekend hobby, the way another normal couple might treat playing tennis or taking ballroom dancing classes. For Peter and Lydia, it was literally an act of romantic devotion to each other.
Lexie describes these childhood memories of how her parents would go to fancy restaurants, charm absolutely everyone in the room, pick up a vulnerable woman, and while the rest is horrific history. And Lexie was there. She was a little kid just witnessing the periphery of this monster lifestyle. She talks about how she used to watch true crime shows on TV and suddenly realized, wait a minute, the behavioral profile of this serial killer sounds exactly like my dad.
That slow realization is the absolute core of her foundational trauma.
Yeah.
And it creates this intense, agonizing internal conflict that dictates everything she does. She frames it through the two wolves metaphor.
Right, the old proverb.
Yes, she feels like she literally has two wolves warring inside her at all times. One wolf, the nature wolf, secretly wants to be loved obsessively, passionately, and dangerously, just exactly like her mother was loved by her father. That wolf actually craves the intensity. It craves the blood and the danger.
But then what about the other wolf? The one she presents to the world?
The other wolf just desperately wants to be safe. It wants to survive. It looks at exactly what happened to her parents. The arrest, the prison sentences, the public infamy, the ruin, and that wolf says, no thank you. I want beige walls, a steady 401k, and absolute predictability.
And that second wolf is currently winning by a landslide at the start of the book, because she has recently engaged herself to the human equivalent of a weighted safety blanket, a man named Noah.
Noah, the reliable doctor. He is handsome, a little messy, but fundamentally wholesome like a loaf of bread, as Lexie so memorably describes him.
Wholesome like a loaf of bread. I mean, that is not exactly the description of a burning, passionate romance. That is a description of a basic carbohydrate.
No, it is not passionate at all.
Yeah.
But for Lexie, that is entirely the point of Noah. Noah represents the end of the story in a romantic comedy. You know the part where the credits roll, everyone is smiling, and absolutely nothing bad or unexpected ever happens again?
He is the happily ever after freeze frame.
Exactly. She has completely convinced herself that this convenience, this total lack of volatility, is what true love is supposed to be. She is obsessively curating her life to look exactly like a harmless rom-com, because the only alternative she knows is a literal horror movie.
But as we all know, if you try to rigidly force your real life into a pre-written script, eventually the actors are going to go off book. And that brings us to the major inciting incident of the novel, the birthday dinner.
Oh, this scene.
This scene is just, oh my gosh, I was cringing, I was laughing out loud, I was completely horrified. We really need to break down the social dynamics here step by step because it is an absolute masterclass in interpersonal cruelty.
It really is. It is a brilliant study in social performance. So Lexie is turning 30, a milestone birthday.
Yeah.
And because she continuously views her life through this protective lens of reality TV and movies, which is her primary coping mechanism, she has fully convinced herself that Noah is throwing her a massive surprise party.
Because that is what happens in the movie.
Right. She has been dropping heavy hints for weeks. She has entirely curated the narrative in her own head.
She is basically suffering from terminal main character syndrome. She truly thinks the world is currently revolving around her personal plotline.
Exactly. She even goes out and buys a specific brand new dress for the occasion. She walks into the restaurant fully ready to feign that perfect open-mouthed surprise. She is completely ready for her close-up.
She walks through the doors, expecting a dark room full of all her friends suddenly shouting surprise. And instead, she's led to a small, quiet table for three. It is just Noah sitting there, and her absolute best friend in the world, Molly.
And here is the specific detail that just violently twists the knife. This is the detail that tells you everything you will ever need to know about Molly as a person. Molly is sitting there wearing the exact same dress as Lexie.
The exact same dress. The very dress which Molly actively encouraged Lexie to buy for this dinner.
Just think about the deep psychology of that move for a second. That is not an innocent accident. That is highly premeditated psychological warfare. Molly told her to buy that specific dress, fully knowing she would be wearing it to the exact same dinner. It is a visual way of saying, I am replacing you right now, and I look significantly better in your costume than you do.
It is absolutely brutal. The cruelty is the point. And Lexie realizes in that exact moment that this is not a surprise party at all. It is a coordinated ambush. Molly and Noah are not there to celebrate her 30th birthday. They're there to dump her, together as a united front, because they have fallen in love with each other behind her back.
It is a complete humiliation ritual. And Lexie's internal reaction is fascinating to read. A normal person in that scenario would scream, cry, maybe throw a glass of wine in Noah's face and storm out.
Which would be totally justified.
Entirely justified. But Lexie, she completely dissociates. Her internal monologue instantly becomes a clinical critique of the production value of the breakup. She is sitting there thinking, wow, this is a terrible plot twist. The lighting in this restaurant is really bad for this scene. The dialogue they're using is totally cliche.
She is not even fully processing the raw emotion of the betrayal. She's purely processing the narrative failure of her life's script.
That is her ultimate defense mechanism kicking in. She mentally detaches from the pain. She realizes in hindsight she missed all the obvious signs of their affair because she was way too busy perfectly performing the role of the happy, oblivious fiancé.
She was directing the movie instead of living in it.
Right. But what is truly fascinating is her specific reaction to Molly's betrayal. Molly was always supposed to be the quirky best friend character, the loyal sidekick in Lexie's rom-com. And suddenly, without warning, the sidekick has violently stolen the lead role.
It completely shatters Lexie's desperate attempt at a normal life.
It proves that her theory was wrong. The supposedly safe choice, Noah, wasn't actually safe at all. He was just a much more socially acceptable kind of cruel.
I have to be honest, reading that specific dinner scene made me physically ill, because it implies that totally normal people who would easily pass the better love psychopathy test with flying colors, are still capable of immense calculated cruelty. It makes you really wonder, who are the real villains here? The clinically diagnosed psychopaths who know they are broken, or the nice normal people who strategically destroy a woman's life on her 30th birthday while wearing her dress?
That is the central driving question of the entire satire. Normalcy in this book is often just an intricate mask for a different, more insidious kind of selfishness. Noah and Molly are what you might call pro-social narcissists.
Meaning they still look good to society?
Yes. They genuinely think they are the good guys in this scenario because they are just following their hearts. They justify their actions by framing it as a tragic but beautiful love story, completely ignoring the absolute trail of destruction they're leaving right behind them.
So Lexie's carefully constructed life just totally implodes. The boring, safe future she meticulously planned is gone forever. The wholesome loaf of bread has officially gone aggressively moldy. And right on cue, almost like the universe or maybe just the highly efficient Better Love intake algorithm senses her vulnerability, it sends her a major distraction. Enter Aidan.
Ah, yes, Aidan. He is a very stark contrast to Noah. He is a brand new client at the Better Love agency. He is a private jet pilot, he is incredibly wealthy, very handsome, and he's a self-described neat freak. And he specifically requests Lexie as his matchmaker.
Which is a massive breach of company protocol, right? Clients aren't supposed to request staff.
It is a huge breach. But Serena, being the pragmatic businesswoman she is, allows it because Aidan is an extremely high-value premium client. And the moment Lexie and Aidan actually meet, the energetic dynamic is completely different from anything she ever had with Noah. With Noah, Lexie was constantly hiding her true self. With Aidan, she instantly feels seen.
And there is a very, very dark reason why she feels seen.
Because Aidan knows exactly who her parents are.
He does. He is deeply obsessed with the true crime case of Peter and Lydia Schwartz. He has studied them. But it actually goes even deeper than that. Aidan openly admits to Lexie very early on in their interactions. I might add that he himself is a psychopath.
He is clinically undiagnosed, but he is highly self-aware. He knows exactly what he is. And he casually tells her that when he was 16 years old, he murdered someone.
Just to see what it felt like.
Yes, a purely experimental kill.
Let's just pause right here. Because most people in the dating pool, I'm going to go out on a very sturdy limb and say 99.9% of the entire dating population, if you are on a date and the person across the table casually says, hey, just so you know, I killed a guy when I was 16, you run. You immediately excuse yourself to the bathroom, you climb out the window, and you call the police. You absolutely do not stick around and order the chocolate lava cake.
You would hope not.
But Lexie, she is intrigued. She stays. Why on earth does she stay?
Well, initially she tries to rationalize it. She heavily doubts him. She thinks to herself, maybe he's being metaphorical. Or maybe he means he accidentally hit someone with his car on a dark road and he just feels overwhelming survivor's guilt about it.
She builds a socially acceptable narrative for him.
Exactly. This is the halo effect in full psychological action. Aidan's extremely handsome. He is charming. He flies private jets. He wears expensive suits. We subconsciously tend to attribute positive moral qualities to highly attractive and successful people. So she looks at him and thinks he simply cannot be a cold-blooded murderer. Just look at his incredible jawline.
Look at his bone structure. He must be innocent. But deep down, beneath the rationalization, that dormant nature wolf, the one that desperately wants obsessive, dangerous love, is finally waking up.
It is starving and it smells food. Aidan actively challenges her desperate desire for safety. He is basically looking at her and saying, you are a monster hiding in plain sight. I'm a monster hiding in plain sight. Let's just drop the masks and stop pretending to be normal.
He gives her permission to be dark.
He does. It perfectly triggers that hyperstophilia we talked about earlier.
Right.
He fully represents the incredibly dangerous attraction she has spent her entire adult life running away from, but secretly craves. He offers her a dynamic where she never has to wear the exhausting mask of boring beige Lexie ever again.
And while this totally twisted, deeply unethical romance is brewing with her client, Lexie is also actively trying to fill the void left by Molly. She desperately needs a new best friend, she needs a new sidekick, and she finds Rebecca.
Rebecca is another client floating around the Better Love ecosystem. She is gorgeous, she works selling cars at a high-end luxury dealership, and she absolutely loves trashy, dramatic reality TV. Specifically a show in the book called Love on the Lake.
Which sounds exactly like the kind of garbage I would binge watch on a Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. So Lexie actively breaks protocol yet again to befriend a client. They instantly bond over this shared ironic love of highly performative scripted romance.
But they also bond over something so much darker and more visceral than just reality television. They actually officially meet and connect at a support group called CCOMP.
Yes. Children of Murdered Parents.
Which honestly just sounds like the absolute saddest club in the entire world.
It really does. It is intended to be a very safe space for extreme trauma bonding. Lexie originally goes there initially just to kind of spy or to try and process her own complicated trauma from the other side of the fence. But she looks across the circle and sees Rebecca sitting there.
And she has this immediate revelation.
She thinks, oh my God, we are actual soulmates. We both have violently murdered parents. We both love watching trash TV to numb the pain. She truly thinks she has found the absolute perfect replacement for Molly. Someone who intimately understands the profound darkness of violent loss.
So you look at her life now. She has the incredibly dangerous dark lover in Aidan, and she has the deep trauma-bonded best friend in Rebecca. It feels like she is successfully rebuilding her entire support system, just this time with much, much sharper edges. But then, just as she thinks she has a handle on things, the rom-com officially turns into a full-blown horror movie.
Yes. This is where the nature versus nurture argument the book has been building really gets put to the ultimate stress test. Lexie starts receiving these mysterious packages delivered to her house.
And we are not talking about a nice bouquet of flowers or a box of assorted chocolates. We aren't talking about a lovely edible arrangement.
Far from it. First, she opens a box, and it is a bone. A literal human bone. And then shortly after, another package arrives containing a human heart.
A human heart, delivered in a cardboard box on her front porch. Now, expert speaker, let's just role-play this scenario for a second. You walk out to your front porch on a Tuesday morning. There's a strange package. You open it up, expecting Amazon. It is a human organ. What is your immediate response?
I call 911 immediately without hesitation. I sprint out of the house. I probably contact the FBI and enter witness protection. I would immediately assume I am the next target on a serial killer's list.
Exactly, because that is the standard nurture response. That is the deeply socialized response trained into us by society. That is what a normal, upstanding citizen does. But Lexie, what does Lexie do? She takes the bloody human heart and she walks out and buries it in the woods.
This is such a pivotal psychological moment in her character arc. This is the exact moment where the mask of normalcy falls off and shatters completely. She treats the severed body part not as a horrifying crime scene that needs investigating, but as a slightly awkward, unwanted gift. Or even more disturbingly, she treats it as a private shrine.
Because she instantly suspects she knows exactly where it came from. She assumes Aidan is sending these horrific trophies to her.
Because Noah is currently missing.
Right. Noah, the ex-fiancé, has just vanished off the face of the earth. And Lexie connects the very obvious dots in her head. She firmly believes Aidan has murdered Noah out of revenge and is now physically delivering him to her piece by piece.
It is exactly like a feral cat bringing a dead bloody bird to its owner's back door. It is a primal gesture of provision. Look at what I hunted and killed just for you.
And the truly messed up part about her reaction, she is definitely horrified, yes. She is stressing out about the logistics of where to dig a deep enough hole in the woods. But underneath the panic, she is also strangely flattered.
Flattered is exactly the right word for it. It intensely feeds that dark wolf that craves obsessive, undivided devotion. She rationalizes it by thinking, well, Noah completely betrayed me and cheated on me. Aidan actually killed for me to avenge my honor.
It is such a warped perspective.
But in the twisted logic of her parents' world, the exact world she tried so desperately to escape her whole life, that is the ultimate grand romantic gesture. It is definitive proof that his love is real and permanent.
It is a complete inversion of moral values. Murder literally becomes a valid love language for her.
And you really have to notice her specific behavior here.
Yeah.
She does not call the police. Why?
Hmm?
Because deep down, she trusts the justice system significantly less than she trusts the psychopath. She knows with absolute certainty that the police would take one look at her, the biological daughter of the infamous serial-less murderers, and they would immediately blame her for Noah's death.
They would say the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Exactly. So she takes matters entirely into her own hands to cover it up. This is her biological nature fully taking the wheel. She is finally acting exactly like a Schwartz.
So let's review her current situation. She is currently burying her ex-fiancé's internal organs in the woods behind her house. She is actively dating the client she fully believes murdered him. And meanwhile, she still has to wake up, put on professional clothes, and go to work every day. And her workplace is not exactly a safe, calming haven right now either.
Not at all. The internal office politics at Better Love are rapidly becoming just as lethal as her dating life. We really have to talk about Nicole.
Oh, Nicole, the rival matchmaker. The quintessential former high school cheerleader who never really grew out of being a mean girl.
Nicole represents a completely different kind of threat to Lexie. If Aidan represents a potential physical danger to society, Nicole is an immediate social and professional danger. Nicole already strongly suspects Lexie is mentally unstable, and she is the one who discovers the graffiti at the office. Someone literally paints the phrase, matchmaking for psychopaths, across the office wall in bright red paint.
Which is such a great, striking visual. It is literally the subtext of the entire novel written out on the wall for everyone to see.
It really is. And Nicole is actively trying to sabotage Lexie's career because they are both up for the lucrative director promotion. So Nicole starts aggressively digging into Lexie's private background. She searches the records, and she finally finds out the truth about Peter and Lydia Schwartz.
She gets the ultimate blackmail material.
She is fully ready to expose Lexie's true identity to the entire staff and ruin her life. This whole subplot is basically corporate psychopathy going head-to-head against actual psychopathy. Nicole is playing the standard cutthroat game of office politics using gossip, sabotage, and public exposure as her weapons.
But Nicole is out there playing checkers, and she has absolutely no idea. She is up against people who are playing 4D chess with literal hunting knives. Because just as Nicole is about to drop the bomb and blow Lexie's cover entirely, she suddenly ends up dead.
Yes, Nicole and her husband are tragically found dead in their home in what the police quickly rule appears to be a standard murder-suicide.
It appears to be. Because Lexie knows immediately that it is way too convenient. It is just too incredibly tidy of a solution.
Of course she knows. But practically speaking, it completely eliminates the immediate threat to her career. And for Lexie, it creates this very complicated moment of profound relief mixed with terrifying suspicion. She naturally assumes Aidan did this for her, too.
She thinks he is just systematically going down the list, cleaning up all her messes.
Right. She thinks he is taking out the cheating ex-fiancé. He is taking out the annoying workplace rival. He is essentially acting as her ultimate personal handyman of murder.
But this escalating body count finally forces the inevitable confrontation. She finally corners Aidan. She's basically like, okay, I really appreciate you sending me the heart, and thanks so much for handling the HR problem with Nicole, but we seriously need to talk about your methods.
And this confrontation is the massive twist that completely flips the whole book on its head. This is the exact moment where the dark satire morphs into a tragedy, or maybe even a farce, depending on how you look at it. Lexie accuses him, and Aidan admits to his dark past again. He admits he's a psychopath. He admits he is weirdly obsessed with her serial killer parents. But he swears to her, he absolutely swears on his life, that he did not kill Noah. And he definitely did not kill Nicole.
And looking into his eyes, Lexie realizes she actually believes him. He is telling the truth. Which leaves one absolutely massive, terrifying question hanging in the air. If the admitted psychopath boyfriend didn't do all these murders, who on earth did?
Enter Rebecca.
Oh my God.
Yes, the sweet reality TV-loving best friend, the woman from the grief support group, the woman Lexie honestly thought was her safe trauma twin.
It turns out Rebecca is not just a supportive friend. She is actually Lexie's biological sister.
The secret sister she never even knew she had. They were separated very early on or given up for adoption before Lexie's life stabilized. Rebecca actively sought Lexie out. She meticulously orchestrated their accidental meeting at the Better Love Agency. She purposefully joined the Children of Murdered Parents support group just to bump into her. The entire friendship was a highly calculated setup from day one.
And the craziest part, Rebecca is the actual killer.
She is the killer. She has been pulling the strings the entire time, and her specific motivation for the murders is just absolutely fascinating psychologically. She did not kill Noah out of some secret jealous love for him or anything cliche like that. She killed him purely because he was, in her words, too boring, and because he dared to cheat on Lexie.
She was literally lethally offended on Lexie's behalf. It is like the most extreme, toxic version of sibling loyalty imaginable.
It really is. Rebecca stood by and watched Lexie desperately trying to live this pathetic normal life with a loaf of bread man. And she absolutely hated it. She felt it was a betrayal of their shared bloodline. She wanted to violently wake Lexie up from her beige delusion. So she murdered Noah and framed the gruesome gifts to look like they came directly from Aidan because she actually highly approved of Aidan.
She liked the cut of his job.
She wanted to aggressively push Lexie toward the psychopath, pushing her toward what Rebecca believed was her true, authentic nature.
That is some incredibly aggressive matchmaking right there. I killed your boring, cheating ex-fiancé so you would finally date the hot pilot.
And then she went ahead and killed Nicole and her husband simply to protect Lexie's upcoming job promotion. Rebecca is basically acting as this incredibly bloody, dark guardian angel hovering over Lexie's life. She is setting out to prove once and for all that blood is thicker than water. And it's definitely thicker than the fragile social contract that says, hey, please don't murder people when you get mad at them.
So just picture Lexie standing there processing all this information at once. Her supposedly safe ex is dead. Her corporate rival is dead. Her sweet best friend is actually her long-lost sister and a prolific serial killer. Her new boyfriend is a self-admitted psychopath. The boring, safe, suburban life she spent a decade meticulously planning is completely incinerated. And she has a massive choice to make right then and there. Does she finally run away? Does she call the cops and turn them all in?
No. She doesn't. And that is the true resolution of the novel. She finally just accepts it all. She officially stops fighting the monster inside herself.
She gives up the ghost of normalcy.
She realizes after all the dust settles that the normal people in her life, people like Noah and Molly who supposedly follow the rules of society, were actually incredibly cruel, deceptive, and deeply disappointing. The psychopaths, on the other hand, Aidan and Rebecca, they were at least honest about who they were. And in their own deeply twisted, incredibly violent way, they were fiercely loyal to her.
So she completely embraces the dark wolf.
She absolutely does. And the book literally ends with a beautiful wedding. Lexie officially marries Aidan.
A gorgeous romantic wedding between two killers. Or, well, at least one killer and one highly complicit accessory after the fact.
Right. Two deeply disturbed people finding their own version of true happiness. It is a brilliant, complete subversion of the traditional rom-com wedding ending. Usually a big wedding scene signifies the final restoration of moral order and peace in a story. Here, it beautifully signifies the ultimate triumph of chaos and moral decay, but for them, It actually perfectly works.
It all circles right back to Serena's original business philosophy, doesn't it? The idea that there's a lid for every single pot.
Exactly. The book aggressively argues, and it is a somewhat disturbing argument to digest, that there really is someone out there for absolutely everyone. Even if you are a literal murderer, there's a perfect match for you somewhere in the database. Lexie finally realizes that scripted reality TV isn't a functional manual for being a human being. She cannot simply model her life after the neat, predictable endings of The Bachelor. She has to model it after her own messy reality. It means modeling it after her serial killer parents, just hopefully with a much better PR strategy this time around.
Wow, it is just such a wild, relentless ride from start to finish. So let's take a breath and really unpack the core message here. What does all of this actually mean for us, the readers? Because on one hand, it is just this highly entertaining, campy, really fun thriller. But on the other hand, it is asking some pretty uncomfortable, probing questions about how we view modern relationships.
It really is. Yeah. I think the deepest core question the book poses is about the concept of authenticity. Lexie spends the entire first half of the novel exhausting herself performing goodness. She is desperately acting normal, but she is utterly miserable doing it. She's only truly happy and relaxed when she finally stops performing and accepts her darkness. The book actively challenges us as readers to ask ourselves how much of our own good behavior is actually just a socially mandated performance. How much of what we call safety in a long-term relationship is actually just us settling for crushing boredom.
Right. We all walk around saying, oh, I just want a nice guy, or I really want a safe, stable relationship. But do we actually? Or do we secretly want someone who really, truly sees us, including all the incredibly ugly, unlovable parts? Now, maybe we don't necessarily want the I secretly buried a human heart in the woods parts, but we want the hidden, shameful parts to be accepted.
And it deeply questions the rigid line we draw between a red flag and a spark of chemistry. From a young age, we are culturally taught to look for that intense excitement, to look for those butterflies in our stomach when we meet someone. But neurologically speaking, often those butterflies are actually our body's ancient warning system. It's our nervous system screaming danger. But in Lexie's specific case, the societal red flags were actually bright green lights for her personal happiness. For absolutely anyone else on the planet, Aidan is a walking nightmare. But for her, he is a perfect savior.
It is also a really sharp critique of how we as a culture consume and commodify trauma. I mean, Lexie and Rebecca literally bond over a trashy show called Love on the Lake, and they hang out at a tragic support group. We constantly treat real-life violent crime and profound heartbreak as casual evening entertainment. Lexie's parents were massive media stars precisely because they were horrific killers.
Absolutely true. The serial lust murderers were complete media darlings in the world of the book. The general public was totally obsessed with their every move. We culturally love a terrifying monster, just as long as they are charismatic and look good on television.
So we have extensively covered the shady business model of better love, the horrific family backstory, the ultimate birthday betrayal, and the mysteriously delivered body parts. We have watched Lexie go all the way from doing simple counseling cosplay to literally burying forensic evidence in her backyard.
And eventually finally finding her perfect match through it all.
And finally finding her perfect match. It is a genuine happy ending, technically speaking. Just a very, very dark one.
A very happy ending for the happy couple. Probably a very bad ending for anyone who ever moves in next door to them.
Very true. You would definitely want to keep your dog on a tight leash in that neighborhood. So here is the final big question I really want to leave you with today as we wrap up this deep dive. We talked a lot about that secret intake test at the agency, the one that cleverly hides the clinical psychopathy questions deep inside a standard bubbly personality quiz.
Yes, the famous Serena questionnaire.
If there was a real test out there in the world, a 100% scientifically accurate test that could definitively reveal you were, in fact, a clinical psychopath, but taking that test and fully accepting the dark result absolutely guaranteed you would find your perfect soulmate, would you take it?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And maybe even more disturbingly, if you did take it, would you actually want to know if your perfect match was a psychopath too?
I think if they were being totally honest, a lot of people would immediately say no to the stigma of the label, but they would absolutely say yes to the ironclad guarantee of never being lonely again. And I think that desperate human need for connection is exactly what makes this entire book so profoundly unsettling to read.
It really is an unsettling mirror to hold up to ourselves. Matchmaking for Psychopaths by Tasha Coryell. It is a fantastic read. Go pick it up, enjoy the ride, but maybe just don't dig too deep into your own partner's backyard while you read it.
That is extremely solid advice to end on.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We will see you all next time.